I met Camille at a coffee shop downtown, the kind of place that tries a little too hard with chalkboard menus and playlists full of indie bands I'd never heard of. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I had a meeting cancel last minute, and I figured I'd kill an hour and catch up on emails. She was in front of me in line, ordering some complicated drink I couldn't pronounce, and when the barista asked for her name, she said, Camille. 1L, 2 eye rolls. That made me laugh. We ended up sitting near each other, accidentally, at first. She asked if she could take the end of my table while she waited for her drink, and I told her it was all hers. 10 minutes later, we were still talking. Her confidence was what struck me first. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was sharp, witty, had that fast kind of intelligence that keeps you on your toes. I remember thinking, this woman could talk circles around me, and I'd enjoy every second of it. She told me she worked in marketing, had recently moved back into the city after spending a few years living out in the suburbs. I told her about the property management business I ran, and she asked a million questions, not out of politeness, but genuine interest. We talked for over an hour. When she left, she handed me her card and said, if you ever need a second opinion on furniture or fonts, give me a call. I texted her that night. Things moved quickly with us. Not in a whirlwind way, just smooth, steady progress. We started going out a couple times a week. She introduced me to restaurants I'd walked past 100 times without noticing. I got her into hiking, which she claimed to hate at first, but secretly enjoyed once she got used to the boots. We talked a lot. Really talked. Even early on, she wasn't afraid to ask deeper questions, and she didn't shy away from mine. About a year in, she moved into my place. It made sense. Hers was smaller, and mine had the extra room she could turn into a home office. She added her touches fast. A few pieces of art on the walls, new dishes, some plants I didn't expect to keep alive. It didn't take long for the place to feel like it was ours instead of just mine. We got married the following summer. A quiet courthouse wedding, just the two of us and a couple of witnesses. She said she'd already done the big ceremony thing in her last marriage and didn't feel like repeating it. That was fine by me. We weren't big on showy gestures. We were more about the day-to-day stuff, shared grocery lists, slow Sunday mornings, passing each other in the hallway, and stopping for a quick kiss without saying a word. Life felt full in a grounded, no-drama kind of way. She started doing some part-time consulting for my company, just a few hours a week to help with our marketing materials and web presence. She was good at it, efficient, creative. It was nice having her be a part of that world with me. It made everything feel even more connected. Looking back, that chapter of our life felt complete. We had our rhythm. We had each other. And from where I stood, it felt like we were exactly where we were meant to be. Settling into married life with Camille felt natural. There wasn't some big shift or dramatic adjustment. It was more like we just made official what we were already living. The transition from dating to married life was seamless, probably because we already knew how to be around each other without stepping on toes. We were both independent in our own ways, but we built this shared space that felt comfortable. Camille had her own rhythm. She liked to start her mornings with music playing in the kitchen while she made coffee, always the same mug, always the same almond creamer. I'd usually join her halfway through, bleary-eyed, scrolling through my phone while she rattled off whatever was on her calendar that day. She worked from home part-time, doing freelance marketing projects and helping out with my business here and there. She wasn't big on staying idle. She liked having something to organize, something to fix. We had our routines, small things that probably looked boring from the outside but made life feel settled. Tuesday nights were always pasta night, her thing. She claimed it was the one day she'd reliably cook, and she stuck to it. Saturdays we'd hit the local farmer's market in the morning, then stop at the bakery down the street for pastries. We didn't need grand adventures to enjoy each other's company. Running errands, walking the dog, binge-watching the same show for the third time, it all felt easy. The house we shared wasn't huge, but it was enough. 3 bedrooms, one for us, one as Camille's office, and one for guests we rarely had. She kept it looking like someone might visit any day. Clean linens, scented candles, a stack of books arranged more for visual effect than reading. She had an eye for design. Our place always looked curated, but somehow still lived in. She'd switch out throw pillows and blankets with the seasons. I let her take the lead on that stuff. I handled the practical side, repairs, bills, groceries when she didn't feel like going out. We got along well. That was one of the things I appreciated most. Camille could be fiery, sure, but she wasn't cruel. If something bothered her, she told me straight. And I respected that. It made communicating simple. We didn't have a ton of arguments, and when we did, they ended quickly. She needed space to cool off. I needed a clear explanation, and we usually found our way back to each other without dragging it out. Work-wise, things were smooth too. She helped redesign our marketing materials for the company, and honestly, it gave us a new level of teamwork. She'd sit across from me at the dining table, headphones on, typing like a storm, while I sorted through budgets or answered emails. I liked those moments, working side by side, not saying much, but knowing we were part of the same machine. People around us would comment on how well we seemed to mesh. Friends, coworkers, even my mother said, "You two just make sense." And at the time, I agreed. We had something solid, something settled. If you'd asked me then, I would have said we were in a good place. I would have meant it. By the time we hit our third year together, life had settled into a rhythm that felt permanent in the best way. We weren't flashy. We weren't the couple posting anniversary montages on social media. But we were consistent, grounded. We had our life, and it worked. Camille had made the house feel like hers in a way that never threatened mine. That's something I appreciated more than I probably said. She never tried to erase what I'd already built. She just added to it. Her style was modern, clean, but warm. Plants in every room. Subtle colors. Even the way she arranged the books on the shelves, grouped by vibe, not title or genre, made the place feel thoughtful. She loved cooking, but only when she was in the mood. When she was, she'd go all in, fresh herbs, multiple pans, the works. And when she wasn't, we were ordering Thai or picking at charcuterie boards while catching up on whatever show we were halfway through. I can still picture her walking barefoot through the kitchen with a glass of wine, talking with one hand, stirring something with the other, music playing in the background. We didn't live in each other's pockets, either. That's something I think people forget about when they talk about good marriages. We had our own space, our own hobbies. Camille loved yoga, wine tastings, and interior design blogs. I spent my downtime fishing, reading history books, or working on DIY projects in the garage. We gave each other room to breathe without ever feeling far apart. Holidays were low-key. Thanksgiving at my sister's, Christmas just the two of us unless we traveled. She didn't like being surrounded by too many people, especially family, unless it was planned down to the minute. I learned to respect that. And in return, she was thoughtful in ways that counted. She'd leave handwritten notes in my suitcase when I traveled for work. Bought me a new pair of boots after casually hearing me complain about mine for 2 seconds. Remembered every weird anniversary, our first date, the first time she stayed over, the day we adopted our dog. We had conversations about the future in broad strokes. Not overly detailed, just enough to know we were on the same page. Maybe we'd build a house one day. Maybe travel more. Maybe kids, maybe not. We weren't rushing anything. We were in that stretch of life where everything felt like it could go on exactly as it was, indefinitely. And at that time, I was good with that. More than good, I was grateful. Camille felt like a partner. A real one. Someone I could trust with the details of my day, the weight of my silence, the parts of me that didn't show up at dinner parties. If there was anything wrong, I didn't see it. Nothing felt off. No tension, no coldness, no strange distance. From where I stood, we were just two people who'd figured it out. And I had no reason to think otherwise. It started with little things. The kind you almost don't notice at first. Camille had always been good at compartmentalizing. She could be locked into a project for hours and forget to eat, then come out of it like nothing had happened. So when she started spending more time in her office, I didn't think much of it. She told me she had new freelance clients and was trying to build out her portfolio. I supported that. Of course I did. But after a couple of weeks, the rhythm was different. She was leaving the house more, sometimes for hours at a time. Meeting with a client, she'd say, or Casey needed help picking out furniture. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? But the stories started feeling thinner. One day she said she was going to her sister's place, and later, when I asked how it went, she paused a little too long before answering. Just enough for me to notice. I didn't confront her. I had no reason to. It wasn't like she was hiding things, at least not openly. She was still texting me during the day, still showing up for dinner, still curling up next to me on the couch some nights with her legs draped over mine. But it felt off. Like her presence was more physical than emotional. Like she was ticking the boxes of being present without really being there. One night, she came home later than usual. I had made dinner, nothing fancy, just baked chicken and roasted vegetables. I wasn't mad, but I texted her around 7:30 asking if she was on her way. No reply. She walked through the door at 9 o'clock with a bag of takeout and a story about running late with a client, getting stuck in traffic, and deciding to pick something up since she figured I'd already eaten. And again, I let it slide. I smiled, said it was no problem, and we ate together like nothing happened. But I didn't eat much. I was thinking too much. It's a strange thing, feeling distance from someone who's sitting right next to you. You start questioning everything, even your own instincts. Is she just busy? Am I overreacting? Is this just what happens in marriage after a few years? Then there were the phone calls. She started taking them in her office with the door closed, even late at night. That wasn't typical. Camille had always been open with that kind of thing. FaceTime calls with her sister on speaker, work calls I could half hear from across the house. But now, the door was shut, locked sometimes. And when I'd ask who it was, she'd smile and say, "Just a client," and pivot the conversation. I didn't press. I didn't snoop. But something inside me was starting to tighten. I found myself waking up in the middle of the night and checking to see if she was still next to me. Not because I thought she wouldn't be, but because part of me needed the reassurance. It wasn't proof. It wasn't even suspicion. Not yet. But something had shifted. And I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't being told the whole story. There's this kind of silence that shows up in a marriage. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy kind. The kind that fills the space between two people who used to talk without thinking and now weigh every word like it's being recorded. That's what our evenings had started to feel like. Camille was still herself, technically. She still made jokes at my expense when I forgot to bring home what she'd asked for. Still wore my hoodie around the house on cold mornings. But something in her energy had changed. The warmth wasn't gone, but it was harder to find. Her affection felt more like habit than instinct. She was more distracted. She'd smile when I talked, but her eyes would drift toward her phone, the TV, anywhere but mine. Sometimes I'd be halfway through a story from my day before I realized she hadn't responded, and when I paused, she'd blink and ask me to repeat the last part. That wasn't her. Camille was the kind of person who remembered everything, a master of details, always 2 steps ahead. Lately, it felt like she was somewhere else entirely. I started noticing she was dressing differently too. Not dramatically, just a bit more put together when she left the house. She said it was for clients, which made sense. But I'd never seen her put on perfume for a Zoom meeting before. I'd never seen her change outfits twice before heading out for what she said was just coffee with a client. Again, I didn't say anything. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who makes his wife feel like she's being watched or doubted just because her schedule shifted. I trusted her. Or at least I wanted to. But the shift kept growing. There was one night, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was upstairs showering. It lit up a few times, buzzing with messages from someone saved under a name I didn't recognize. I didn't touch it, I wouldn't. But I stared at that screen for a long minute, wondering why she hadn't mentioned a new friend or coworker. When she came back downstairs, she picked it up without looking and slid it into her back pocket. Like muscle memory. We still shared a bed. Still said goodnight. Still went through all the motions of what a marriage is supposed to look like. But I'd started waking up early, sometimes just lying there and listening to her breathe, wondering what she was thinking about when she turned away from me. There were no fights, no accusations, no scenes, but the silence was louder than any shouting match I'd ever had with anyone. I told myself this was probably just a phase. People change. Marriages stretch. Maybe I was being sensitive. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe we'd both been too busy lately, and what I was reading as distance was just distraction. But late at night, lying there next to her, I felt something I hadn't felt since before we got married. Alone. By this point, I had started keeping a kind of mental journal, not on paper, but in my head. Just a quiet catalog of the little things that didn't feel right. Times Camille said she'd be one place and came back later than made sense. Times she was oddly short with me, like a roommate passing through the kitchen rather than a partner. Things she didn't say. Moments that slipped past without explanation. I didn't want to become suspicious. I really didn't. That kind of thinking eats away at you if you let it. I'd seen it happen to people, jealousy turning into obsession. I wasn't there, but I was circling it. One evening, I got home earlier than expected from a meeting that had been cut short. I walked in through the garage, quiet as usual. Camille was in her office, door cracked open, on the phone. She didn't hear me come in. I paused outside, not to eavesdrop, but because something about her tone stopped me cold. Her voice was softer, warmer, almost nervous in that flirty kind of way. I couldn't hear every word, just enough to register that she wasn't talking like that to her sister or to a client. Then the door creaked, and she caught sight of me. Her body stiffened just slightly, blink and you'd miss it. She smiled quickly, too quickly. "Hey," she said, covering the bottom of her phone. "Just finishing up a call." "Client?" I asked, careful to keep my voice casual. "Yeah, one of the new ones from the firm I told you about. They're expanding and needed some branding help." Her smile stayed, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'll be done in a sec." I nodded, moved on. But something in me didn't. She'd never mentioned a firm, and she always used names. Camille liked to talk about people. She told stories, shared small details, vented about the difficult ones, laughed about the strange ones. But this one? No name. Just vague gestures towards something I had no way to check. I didn't press. I didn't ask again. But later that night, as she scrolled through her phone with a glass of wine in one hand and a blanket pulled around her, I sat beside her and felt like we were on two completely different timelines. Like she was already somewhere else and just hadn't told me yet. We still slept in the same bed. Still shared dinners. Still posted pictures here and there that looked, to anyone else, like a perfectly happy couple doing just fine. But something was leaking out at the edges. Something I couldn't name, but felt. Heavily. Constantly. And the worst part? She was better at hiding it than I was at pretending not to notice. It was a Wednesday. I hadn't planned to come home early. I had a client lunch that got canceled last minute and figured I'd take the rest of the day to catch up on work from home. I texted Camille around noon, told her I'd be home in an hour. She didn't respond. Not immediately. That wasn't unusual. She was probably in a meeting or on a call, I thought. I didn't give it much weight. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as always. Her car was there. Nothing felt off, no signs, no warnings. Just a quiet street and the sound of tires on gravel. I opened the front door and stepped inside. The house was silent. I assumed she was in her office or maybe on a call upstairs. I moved through the hallway, set my keys down, and called out, "Camille?" Nothing. I headed toward the stairs, taking them a little slower than usual. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the way the air felt heavier than it should have. Halfway up, I heard it. Voices. Not just voices, her voice. Soft, breathless. Followed by a man's voice. Laughing. Low. And then silence. A sudden, too late kind of silence. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I walked down the hall, straight toward our bedroom, heart pounding so hard it felt like it might crack my ribs. The door was mostly shut, not fully latched. I pushed it open, and that's where I found them. Camille. In bed. Hair a mess, sheets twisted around her legs. And next to her, him. I recognized him before I even registered his face. Her ex-husband. I didn't move. I just stood there. Not angry. Not loud. Just still. Camille froze. Her face turned pale in an instant. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. He sat up too fast, reaching for his clothes like that would fix something, as if scrambling to hide would undo what I'd just seen. No one spoke. The sound of my own breathing was louder than anything in the room. And in that moment, something inside me didn't just break, it changed. I didn't shout. I didn't ask questions. I just turned around and walked out of the room. Out of the house. Out of whatever we had left. I didn't need an explanation. I already knew everything I needed to. I didn't stay gone long. I drove around for maybe 20 minutes, engine humming while my thoughts ran too fast to catch. I wasn't thinking about what I'd say when I walked back in. Honestly, I wasn't thinking at all. I was just running on whatever was left of instinct. When I pulled into the driveway again, the house looked exactly the same. That's what struck me first, how still everything was. How unchanged. As if what I'd just seen hadn't happened at all. I stepped back inside and found Camille in the living room, dressed now, standing with her arms crossed like she was bracing for impact. Her ex-husband was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter like it was his house. He didn't even flinch when I walked in. I didn't look at him. I only looked at her. She didn't apologize. She didn't cry. She didn't even look ashamed. She just said, "I was going to tell you." I didn't respond. I didn't trust myself to speak yet. Then she added, "I've been seeing him for a few months." It started slow. Conversations. Old feelings came up. I didn't plan for it to happen like this. But it did. I remember standing there, trying to figure out which part hurt more, what she did, or how little emotion she showed while saying it. Her face was calm, like she was explaining a scheduling conflict. Like she was walking me through a decision she'd already made weeks ago. "I know you're a good man," she said, voice flat. But I need more than safe. I need someone who knows me, who pushes back. Someone who isn't just steady. I can't live like this anymore. I laughed, just once. A sharp, bitter sound that came out before I could stop it. So you're leaving me for the man you already left once? She didn't even blink. People change. He's different now. We're different now. I looked at her for a long time. At the woman I'd built a life around, shared a bed with, trusted down to the details. The woman who said she wanted something real when we stood in front of that courthouse. And all I could see was someone who had already walked out long before today. She just hadn't packed yet. She said she was moving in with him. That it would be easier this way. That we could handle the details like adults. I didn't answer. I just stepped aside as they gathered a few bags, her laptop, a coat she didn't even need. He didn't say a word. Didn't apologize. Just kept his eyes low and his mouth shut. They walked out without slamming the door. No yelling, no drama. Just a soft click as everything I thought was solid finally, completely collapsed. The first night alone in the house, I didn't sleep. Not from grief. Grief would have been easier. It was something colder. Sharper. Like a wire pulled tight across my chest that wouldn't let me exhale. I walked from room to room like I was in someone else's house, opening doors just to remind myself she was gone. Not gone. Like missing, gone like she had chosen to burn the bridge and walk away with the man she swore she'd never go back to. I didn't cry. Not that night. Not the next. What I felt wasn't heartbreak. It was clarity. A clean break from the man I'd been just a week ago. That man had trusted her. Built a life with her. Given her a job. A salary. A car. Access to everything. And now? Now she was with him, living in some borrowed version of our old life, like she hadn't just gutted it from the inside. She worked for me. People forget that part when they talk about love and fairness and keeping things civil. Camille worked for me. It started casual, helping with branding, content strategy. Eventually, I put her on payroll. Full-time. Benefits. Company card. I didn't think twice. It was ours, right? Our life. Our business. The day after she left, I walked into my office and revoked every login she had. Killed her access to the company drive, the email, the dashboard. I filed her termination paperwork within the hour. No explanation necessary. No back and forth. She was gone, and so was the job. Her company card was next. I pulled the statements, closed the account, froze the backup she had kept, just in case. I found charges I didn't recognize. Lunches I hadn't been told about. Overnight stays that didn't match the story she gave me. I didn't need to ask. I already knew who those meals and hotel rooms had been for. Then I went for the car. Technically, it was in my name. The payments came from my business account. She picked it out, sure, but I paid for it, insured it, handled every maintenance bill. I called the lender, arranged a tow, and had it picked up from outside their new apartment within 48 hours. I imagined her walking outside, coffee in hand, finding the empty space where it used to be. Let him drive her around now. And the house? I changed the locks. Not because she tried to come back, not yet, but because I knew she would. Camille always wanted closure, access, final words. I wasn't giving her that. I boxed up the few things she hadn't grabbed and put them in the garage. If she reached out, she'd find nothing but a closed door. She did, eventually. The text started on a Sunday morning. We need to talk. This is immature. You can't just freeze me out. I didn't answer. She tried calling next. Left voicemails. Angry at first, then pleading, then furious again. Said I was ruining her life. That I didn't have to be cruel. That she needed her things. I didn't respond. I didn't need to yell or curse or beg. I didn't need to explain what she already knew. She made her choice. Now she could live with it. Starting over didn't happen all at once. There wasn't some dramatic turning point. No montage of me getting my life together with a soundtrack behind it. It was quiet. Subtle. Like walking into a house that's been emptied out and slowly learning to appreciate the echo. The first few weeks after everything ended, I stayed off social media. Deleted her photos, cleared her number, blocked everything. Not out of rage, just necessity. Every reminder felt like reopening a door I'd already shut. I didn't want to know how she was doing. I didn't want to see her pretending to be happy. If she was, fine. But it wasn't my business anymore. The house, once loud with her presence, grew still. But that stillness started to feel like a relief. No second toothbrush in the bathroom. No hairpins in the hallway. No lingering perfume in the sheets. It was mine again. I rearranged the furniture, not drastically, but enough to feel the shift. I repainted the guest room. gave away the wine glasses we'd picked out together. Each change felt small, but they added up, like I was slowly reclaiming space one drawer at a time. Work helped. Pouring myself into the business gave me structure. Without Camille, I had to step back into roles I hadn't touched in years, and weirdly, I found satisfaction in it. I hired someone new to take over her responsibilities, a recent grad with sharp instincts and zero drama. Things ran smoother than they had in a long time. I started going out again, too. Nothing crazy. Grabbing drinks with friends. Taking solo hikes. Reading more. Sleeping better. I stopped walking around with that constant knot in my chest. I started laughing again at shows, at dumb jokes, at myself. I didn't realize how tense I'd been until my shoulders finally dropped and stayed there. And then one day, it just happened. I met someone. Her name's Marin. We met at a local fundraiser for a housing project my company had helped sponsor. She worked in community outreach, had this calm presence that didn't ask anything from me. We talked briefly at the event, nothing big. Just one of those light, easy conversations that stays with you longer than you expect. A week later, I ran into her again, pure chance, in the same bookstore cafe I'd avoided for months. We ended up sitting for 2 hours. It wasn't a spark, not at first. It was a steadiness, a comfort, the kind of connection that doesn't demand you perform. I told her I'd been through a rough divorce. She nodded and didn't ask for details. Just said, that kind of hurt doesn't leave quickly. Take your time. We've gone on a few dates since. No pressure. No racing ahead. Just simple, honest time spent together. For the first time in a long time, I feel okay with the quiet. Okay with not knowing where things will go. Because this version of my life, this new space, these slower days, it's mine. Built on something real. Not revenge. Not regret. Just peace. Sometimes I think about that day. The one where everything changed. Not in a bitter way, more like watching a movie I've seen before. I know how it ends. I know where it breaks. And I no longer sit on the edge of my seat, waiting for the twist. It doesn't sting like it used to. The memory's still there, sure. But it's dulled now, like a photo left out in the sun. I can remember her voice, the way she looked when she told me she was leaving, the exact way the door clicked shut behind her, but those things don't live in my chest anymore. They've moved into storage, filed away under was, not is. I don't hear from Camille anymore. After I cut her off, she tried to push back, messages, voicemails, even one letter that showed up folded into a messy envelope without a return address. I didn't open it. Didn't need to. Whatever she thought she needed to say, I'd already heard enough. She made her decision. And more importantly, I made mine. She lost everything she left with. The job. The money. The security. The life she thought would keep going on in the background while she rewrote the rules in secret. And me? I didn't chase her. Didn't burn down everything on the way out. I just removed her from it quietly, completely. What I've built since isn't flashy. It's not a fairy tale or some perfect rebound story. It's honest. Steady. Built from scratch with no blueprint except what I learned from everything that went wrong. Marin's still in my life. She's not a replacement. She's not a rescue. She's just herself, grounded, kind, endlessly curious. She shows up with presence, not expectations. Some nights we sit on the couch and say almost nothing, and that silence feels more intimate than any long conversation I ever had in my marriage. She doesn't ask me to be someone I'm not. She just listens. And that's more than enough. I don't measure my days in what I lost anymore. I measure them in the small victories, a quiet morning, a finished book, a laugh that comes without effort, a house that's fully mine, a future that doesn't feel like it's being decided by someone else. I used to think betrayal was the end of a story. Now I know better. Sometimes, it's just the part where you finally start telling the truth to yourself and to the life you still get to build.